Welcome to the Elizabeth Robbins Diary podcast. We're at the end of the season and had some listener questions and responses. So we got together with some friends at the show to answer them and chat about season 1. That episode will be released next week, so we wanted to provide you a piece of that conversation for a mini episode today. You'll hear the voices of 7th generation Brooksvillian Andrea Hedick Read, our graphic designer Barry Meindl, and Mayor Blake Bell from episode 9 returns to share with us some more. By the way, be sure to go to erdiary.com to find more photographs and stories about Elizabeth. Anyway, enjoy this mini episode. What is your favorite episode and why? We touched on this a little bit, but
mine, I have two. Home of the Tangerine, because I just learned so much about the city that I love, and that obviously. And then I'm a little biased, but the episode that you invited my uncle and I to participate in, and it's just something that, and I'm going to talk about this later, you're creating a legacy here, and something that for generations people can hear about. And I wish we would have documented more earlier on when other people were still alive, and it's something that 50, 100 years from now this will still be around, and because of that it's special.
Man, every one of them really, but to pick I guess a couple of favorites is the Home of the Tangerine one was something else, just to hear the history and even going back to some of the things that Mr. Kimbrough went into about some of the roads and highways and railways, that kind of paved the way to what we see today. It was very interesting. Same thing hearing the episode with you, Blake, and your uncle talking about, what was it, Highway 41, which still obviously goes right through downtown Brooksville. So hearing kind of the groundwork for that. I think on a personal level, I really enjoyed the episode, what was it, 7, which was the rescuers. About a year ago, I was hospitalized with pneumonia, and I thought it was really interesting that I connected with Elizabeth in a way that what she was experiencing in the hospital or in the room, whatever it was for the rescuers, I was like, man, I was relating to a lot of that in terms of it being a very sterile environment, and even to the point of just watching nothing but the rain hitting the window. It's I just remembered moments that kind of brought me back. It was interesting. So that episode was definitely one that hit the emotions for me.
That episode was very bizarre.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. That episode, I'm like, all the different aspects of it. And then I'm wondering, did people in this area do that? Because it was for higher society, right? You had to be able to pay to go stay somewhere, but it sounded like a miserable experience. But I mean, I could do that in my own home, and I guess that was a later version of it. Yeah. The rescuers one was just bizarro and weird, but
I could not sit still for more than 10 minutes, let alone however long.
And somebody like her, who was like you, Barry, who's somebody who's constantly on the go, somebody who's constantly trying to, accomplish to-do lists and whatnot. My favorite, I definitely loved the last one. It just, anything tied to family ties and stuff, they're always special. And to hear Blake and his uncle Bruce talk about all of the Snow family and their ties here to Chinsegat is really special. To hear a lot of the little intimate stories. You get to hear the Robbins and Elizabeth and Margaret. Well, specifically Elizabeth does such a good job of kind of introducing you to the families. You can tell they think of them so on a special level. They really talk kindly about them. But to hear more about that, because you don't get to hear a lot about that. They didn't document like the Robbins did. They didn't, keep the kind of records and whatnot. And then the Home of the Tangerine, I loved, at this point now, I would love to see what Alfred McKeithen would say, like even with Blake, with some of like the things he's doing as mayor of Brooksville on city council, and to see what Alfred McKeithen thinks about some of those things, with, you know, him being like very pro, like let's develop Spring Hill, and like that taking the place of, you know, after the freeze and us needing, you know, growth, them, you know, creating these developments and all of the roads, which at that time, if they hadn't done that, like what would Brooksville be today? Right. But I think in a lot of ways, like, and just thinking, you know, knowing like our families and like the way that they feel about this area and whatnot, I think they would feel very similar in a lot of the things that are happening now. I think they would be very proud of a lot of the things that Blake's doing as mayor on city council, even though, you know, they talk about a lot about like, you know, needing to bring all the development and needing to bring the roads. At that time, that was a need for us. So I thought that was just, I tied that very personally to myself, and just thought it was very interesting, and loved to hear that.
But they also were gatekeeping, and you and I have talked about that a little bit too. Like, they knew they wanted to grow, they knew they needed people here to make Brooksville better, but they still were protective of the culture.
Correct.
And
that's a whole nother, that's for another episode. That's a story for another episode.
But and so some of what city council and Blake are doing right now is that kind of gatekeeping, by saying, no, like, we aren't going to have these kinds of houses, we aren't going to have things that look like this, or we're going to have them that close. That's still doing the same sort of thing, just not on an individual level, saying, no, we don't want you here.
Like identifying what our needs are at this moment, and saying, like, I'm going to do what's very best for Brooksville, and these are the needs at the moment, and that's what they're going to be. And I think at that time, like, the all roads lead to Brooksville, and like just hearing Mr. Kimbrough say, you know, at that time we knew that bringing that roads coming through here would lead to the prosperity of Hernando County and Brooksville. Like, that was the important thing, and that's one thing I treasure and value about a family that I will, you know, claim as my own, and all of our ancestors and stuff, is that I think that they've always wanted what's best for Brooksville and for Hernando County, and they've done that in the best way they know how. And I'm very proud to have you as our mayor now, and to kind of be following that and that legacy.
Woo-woo.
Yeah, and I don't want to put everyone on the spot, but I'm almost kind of interested, like, what was like your favorite diary entry, if you can think of one from one of the episodes? Because for me, I can easily say, like, the one in the Home Sweet Home, episode 8, I believe, the music one.
Snow Hill Band.
Like the picture that it was able to paint of that particular evening.
So visual.
Well, look,
I think I sent you a text message that said, I'm crying.
It was so beautiful.
All the Robins write beautifully. All of them do. And
they had a talent for writing, for sure, because you read other people's journal entries. I mean, we are so blessed to have Anderson Mayo's journal entry, but he was a businessman, you can tell, because it was
we did this.
We paid this much, and it was way too expensive. No. But she had definitely a way with words, and you know, obviously was very artistic and talented. Yep. So it reads well, but Home Sweet Home was definitely my favorite journal entry, because you can just picture sitting on the porch, and we've all sat on the Chinsigat Manor House porch and had that feeling before, so you know exactly what she was writing about.
Home Sweet Home is the one where they were like throwing the tangerines.
Yes, I was trying to picture that. These people throwing them tangerines while they're singing. Yeah, that was awesome.
Just sounds like the best life.
Yeah.
It's very fun. So listener question number 2 is from Tom. How has knowing about local history helped you in your professional or personal life?
Well, in my professional life, quasi-professional life, I guess, as a member of the city council, understanding history has been very important in shaping the public policy that I'm trying to push in Brooksville. And that goes back to what Andrea was just talking about, just maintaining what our families created in the mid-1800s here and trying to continue on that legacy that they started. And that has shaped me tremendously professionally. History was something my grandfather loved. Family history particularly was something my grandfather loved. So keeping history as part of our city is very important to me moving forward. From a personal life, my local history is made up of cousins and aunts and uncles and people who I see on a daily basis, and I appreciate, them being in my life. So that's something that has shaped my life on a personal level.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on yours before you guys go, because when I got on city council, that was something that was important to me, was understanding where we had been. And that was when I really started digging down into the local history and how I ended up at Chinsegat in the first place, was coming to understand. Because if you don't understand how you got to where you are not going to make good decisions moving forward. And I think we saw that not at a city council level, because you guys would not do that, but there was a push at the county to rename a park that was Anderson Snow Park, because nobody understood who Anderson Snow was. So they just thought, well, he's not around anymore, let's name it after somebody new. And it totally missed the whole point that, first of all, it was his land that he gave, but also just the whole historical context of why Anderson Snow mattered. And so for me, moving forward with Main Street, I think it's important that we make sure the community understands, if something's named after somebody, who that person is and why. And that's part of what Torbyville is about.
Yeah,
so, Andrea, if you want to follow up on
we
that.
We saw that with Tom Barn, really, the research that has been done on Tom Barn and included on Tour BVL. It's great.
Yes. And growing up, I grew up obviously in this area, and hearing all the like Ernie Weaver and Tom Barn, and those were just the names of the parks. But as we've done more with Tour BVL, and it's just like the names have taken life in a way that like you realize why those parks are named after those people. And those were significant members of our community that made huge contributions, and they are owed that, and that leaves their legacy alive to remember and to teach people how to make a difference in your community. So that's really important. But you'd have to reread me the question.
No, you answered it.
Yeah,
okay.
No, and that's I think the impact it's had on me too. Is when I started, really my first interaction with Brooksville was through Brooksville Main Street, and at first I'm just like, I think you guys pulled me in when we were planning an event. I can't remember what, but like that side of it was like, we're just having a good time in Brooksville, and we're just putting on parties in Brooksville and all of that, and that's great. But for me, where it really started to become something special is when you start putting these names to, what's going on, and to the history of the town, and these buildings that we have downtown that are such treasures, to Andrea's point, just kind of learning about where these things come from, and then seeing how you're able to do things in the town within the history and still celebrating it, and not just be about let's just do our thing. Nobody cares about what happened in the past type of thing, and just seeing how we can still enjoy the past, celebrate it while still moving forward. I think it's all
and I think we've
so
learned
cool
through
to
like
see.
the Great Brooksvillian Award and whatnot, that we can learn so much from these people and the way that they've contributed to our community. Like if we can contribute in the way that they have done, like we can continue to make this community grow in like the most positive way, because these are people that had vested interest and truly loved the community, like the community of Brooksville or just Hernando County in general. And I have learned that from you, Barry, as somebody who very much just loves Brooksville. You love everything we're doing with Brooksville Main Street, but you have learned so much through the history. And I think it's seeing what it's meant to you, and even Elisa, who is your co-chair on our design committee, seeing the way that you guys have tied it into the mobile murals and stuff like that. As you guys have learned more, it's made me realize how special and how unknown the history is to a lot of people, and how important it is to do the things like you're doing with the Edderington Foundation, and things like Tour BVL, and to where we're just reminding people of where we come from and who we are, and the people that have made huge differences and huge strides that have brought us to where we are.
It is, and that's why it's been so fun to see, because I give a lot of credit to Natalie, to you, Andrea, to Blake as the mayor. Just hearing how proud you guys are of the city and the history of it led me to think, whoa. I mean, there's a lot more going on here.
Thank you for listening. I hope you felt like you were in the room with us. We'd love to hear what your favorite episode is. Send it to us by going to erdiary.com under the Submit a Question tab. Also, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss the full conversation next week. That will also alert you to the launch of Season 2 and all our updates along the way. We'll see you next week.